airlifted to Arnold Palmer Hospital in Orlando and survived the night. But unfortunately, Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m., that child passed away. That child has been identified as Chosen Morris, Morris, who lives on Citrus Landing Boulevard here in Davenport. His parents are Robert and Quintina Morris, both 32 years of age. He had two siblings. He had a 11-year-old sister and a 7-year-old brother. The investigation has basically revealed that the family Friday evening was preparing to go out. They were going out for pizza. They're doing a family night. They're going out for pizza. They had promised Morris they were going to stop by the store and buy him a present, and then they were going to come back home and play some board games or some sort of family night game. While they were getting ready, Dad, Robert, was in the restroom getting ready. Mom, Quintina, was in the bedroom on her computer, and the two older kids were in the living room playing on their electronic devices, playing games on their electronic devices, had ear pods in their ears. Mom heard what she described as a pop and came out into the living room believing that the kids had dropped something and broke something. When she confronted the kids about that, they were like, "No, we didn't drop anything, we didn't break anything." She started asking where Chosen was. They didn't know where Chosen was. She started looking around the house, saw the interior door leading into the garage was open, went out into the garage, and ultimately found Chosen in the front seat of the car with a gunshot wound to the head. Miss Morris is a nursing student, and so she, I think some of her training kicked in. She immediately started doing what nurses do, try to get him as stable as possible. They drove him to the hospital in their car, which is only about 2 miles away, and that's when the medical professionals took over. And as I said, the following day, Morris passed away. We have recovered the firearm. The firearm was initially up underneath the driver's seat of the vehicle. It is a Smith & Wesson M&P 40 caliber handgun. Manufacturer trigger pull is about 6 pounds. So it had been very easy for somebody the size of Chosen to be able to pull that trigger. We believe that Chosen was excited about going out that evening and got into the car to wait for the rest of the family, and in doing so found the firearm underneath the seat, and while playing with it, it discharged and causes fatal injuries. I can't stress to you enough how tragic this is. I met with the family earlier today. They are devastated. They are devastated at what happened. Davenport's a small community, although it's growing. There's still a lot of closeness within the community. This family, the Morse family, they recently moved here from out of state. They have no family around here. They have very limited friends. The kids are homeschooled. So the community is trying to wrap their arms around this family because of this tragic accident. And again, I just can't stress enough how tragic this incident is. But on the same side of that is the responsibility and the lessons we need to learn in gun safety. We talk about this a lot as far as making sure your firearms are secured and making sure they're put away from the juveniles so things like this don't happen. And this is just a stark reminder of that. And I will say this, in talking to Mr. Morris, he tells us that he keeps the gun for personal protection, like most of us do when we're out and about. He keeps the firearm in his vehicle for personal protection when he goes back and forth to work. He came home Thursday, didn't work Friday, but he came home Thursday, and normally he will take the firearm out from underneath the seat and go secure it in his bedroom. And he forgot. He just simply forgot. He forgot it Thursday, and then this happens Friday. So again, we just have to remember the importance of knowing where our firearms are at all times and making sure they're secure when they're not on our possession. I'll be happy to answer any questions that y'all might have.
Do you see a lot of cases like this? I can tell you're emotional about it, but how often do you come across these things?
In Davenport, we don't come across them that often. You know, I retired from the sheriff's office, and we used to see them quite often, unfortunately. You know, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, so I can relate I can't say I can relate. I don't know how they feel. I mean, I can't even imagine what they're going through right now. They are just so devastated. When I met with them this morning, they were just so devastated at what happened. So yeah, it impacts all of us, you know, when these things happen, especially when you are a parent or a grandparent, because that could be your child, that could be your grandchild.
Obviously a tragedy. I hate to ask this question. Are there any charges expected?
As part of our protocol, we will meet with the state attorney's office once all our reports are completed, and discuss this with them. I can tell you my personal opinion right now is we are not going to seek any kind of criminal charges. If you know, again, we'll talk to the state attorney's office. We have a good working relationship with them. I am hopeful that they feel the same way that we do. But to answer your question, we are not seeking any kind of criminal charges at this time.
When you sent that picture of the gun, my first thought was it looks like it could be a water gun to a 4-year-old. I know 4-year-old is young. Do you suggest parents talk to kids about difference or about guns if they own them?
I think that is a very wise suggestion. You know, my son grew up in law enforcement. We had guns around the house all the time. My son, he knew the importance of not playing with a gun because he was exposed to it all the time. And I think that's what's important is, as you bring up, is talking to your kids, no matter how young they are, and just stressing to them the importance of not playing with this, not touching with this, and even taking them out in target practice with them and let them get used to, you know, what a gun can actually do. Yes, ma'am.
It just strikes me as a parent with young kids that, do you feel there was any perhaps lapse of responsibility on the parent's part with the kid not knowing where their 4-year-old child was?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Any lapse in terms of like attention or responsibility of this young child if they didn't know where their child was, the door was unlocked to the garage unless you believe the child unlocked it. I don't know if the car was unlocked when he went into it. It seems like there were multiple barriers potentially between this child and the gun.
Right. So, and I think I'm going to answer your question. So, no, I don't believe that there were any negligence on the part of the parents as far as watching the child, if that's what you're alluding to. I mean, you know, mom is in the bedroom doing what she's doing. Dad's getting ready for this family night outing. The older kids are in the living room doing what they do. I mean, they're in the confines of their house. You know, I don't know that, you know, locking the door or, you know, putting up these barriers to keep a 4-year-old confined to a certain area is necessary. So you're right. Their door was closed going into the garage. The car door was closed. It was not locked, obviously. I don't know that you would expect a 4-year-old to go out into the garage and get in the car in this fashion. So no, I don't believe that there was any kind of negligence on that part. If I answered your question.
Chief, do you have any advice for gun owners? Because I think there are like gun cases, like you should always leave your gun in a gun case, in a car, right? Aren't there? And I don't know if there's like a law for that either, but just any advice for parents, like what can they do to prevent this kind of thing?
Yeah, you know, law enforcement always advocates about gun safety and securing your firearms. You know, make sure that your firearms are, you know, if you don't have it in a lock box per se, there are trigger guards, trigger locks that you can put on there. I think the most important thing to start with is knowing where your firearms are at all times. You know, when you get out of the car, know I've got it locked in my glove box in the car if I need it. I need to take it out of the car. I know it's locked in my gun safe in my bedroom. Always knowing where they're at. That's stage one. And then secondly, making sure it's locked up. You know, like I said, either with a trigger guard or some kind of lock box.
And those things aren't hard to get.
They're not hard. And in fact, we give them away. We give them out. All they have to do is come by the police department, and we will give them out. You know, that's how important it is to us as far as gun safety. Yeah.
And they're free?
How often do people
Yes.
come and pick those up?
Ma'am?
How often would you say people come and actually pick those up?
They come and pick them up every so often. Like, I was told that we had somebody come in last week and picked up 5 of them. You know, we're actually running kind of low, but we'll order more and we'll have them available when the public does want them. And yes, they are free. We get them for free and we give them out for free.
Those are trigger locks.
These are trigger locks, yes. And what it does is you actually open the you open up the firearm. You actually open up the firearm and you slide this through the barrel, and then you lock it, and that way the barrel can't close to chamber around.
I was talking to you earlier about House Bill 1087, which would require gun owners to secure their guns. What are your
Right.
thoughts on that? And is there anything like that right now for gun owners?
So yeah, so there's actually a statute in existence now, 790.174, that basically says that you have to keep firearms inaccessible to juveniles, anybody under the age of 16. Senate Bill 252, which I think House Bill 1087 is kind of a companion to Senate Bill 280 or 252. 252 amends or revises 790.174 to include that if you're not in possession of it, you actually have to keep it locked or in a locked box or something of that nature. And there's some other things part of that bill as well, as far as purchasing firearms and dealers and things along those lines. But House Bill 1087 that you're referring to talks about vehicles and storing firearms in a vehicle. And that bill, if it passes and becomes law, then people will be required, if they keep a firearm in their vehicle, when they are not present in the vehicle, then they have to lock it in a glove box in some sort of secured fashion or something like that.
Do you think that would be helpful?
Oh, anytime you can put things in place, you know, to make guns safe is going to be helpful, absolutely, as long as the public adheres to it. You know, I think the sad part about it is that we have laws in place and we still have these tragedies happen. You know.
So the law states right now that you have to keep guns inaccessible to those under 16.
Under 16.
Is it just kind of too vague?
You know, I don't know what the legislature's, you know, premise is as far as these new bills go. The statute basically just says that if you have to keep guns out of the hands of juveniles, and I think the statute was created. It was created many years ago, but I think it was created when we started seeing a lot of gang violence rise, and so it was created to try to keep the guns out of the hands of kids. And of course, there are exceptions to that. I mean, if you have it locked up and a kid breaks into your house and steals it, then you know you're not in violation of that particular law. And then other exceptions. But I think that's why that law is in place, simply to keep the guns out of the hands of kids. Number one, the gangs. Number two, tragedies such as this.
Chief, this is actually the second incident we've had of this in Polk County so far this year. Is that abnormal, or is that we just hearing about it more often?
You know, I don't know that it's necessarily abnormal. You know, I think we hear about different situations that become frequent and then they'll fall off, and then they'll become frequent again and fall off. I mean, summertime we start hearing about child drownings, you know, and you know that's another tragedy. But then that'll fall off, and so I think something like this, you know, when you have a couple of them, yeah, it kind of brings it to the forefront. But I don't necessarily, I don't necessarily believe it's a trend or anything along those lines. Any other questions? Thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
You want one?
Oh, no. I
All right.
probably need to take a few classes.